Well, hi. My name is Terry Elton. I've met some of you, but I haven't met others of you, and I'm going to be your teacher. Well, at least most times. No, I am going to be joining you, but I am in St. Louis, Missouri, working with a group of ELCA youth workers and people from various networks thinking about faith formation as we move forward into this 21st century. So I'm going to be about that today, and I've left you in the good hands of Tim Coldfett. So thanks, Tim. What I want to do as we get started today is look over the syllabus, give you a guide of where we're going to go, give you some big ideas of this class, and then set you free to have Tim work with you today. So, as you have probably seen in your syllabus, there are some kind of big ideas here. But what we're going to do is instead of kind of look at it from every angle, we're going to play with this, but then we're going to see how does this touch down in a congregation or in ministry that we might imagine ourselves leading into the future. So sometimes classes kind of take ideas and go over a long period of time. We're going to take kind of two ideas. What is discipleship and what is vocation as we think about children, youth, and family ministry, and kind of look at practices, look at it in our own life, and look at it in a congregation's life. So, as you see, the course description: in baptism, Jesus Christ calls people of faith to himself, to each other, and the world. And in this class, we're going to explore the nature and the practices of this thing that we call discipleship, or the forming of us into what does it mean to be Christians and to live Christian, and vocation, where we're living that out in the everyday world, and especially with an eye towards children, youth, young adults, and their families. But in that, we're going to look at our own journey. We're going to both be the inward reflectant and do some practices ourselves as we also think about how we help others do that. So there's some objectives there. We're going to learn about it. We're going to engage in practices around it. We're going to develop a theology that helps shape our understanding of what this is. We're going to attend to our own callings as first and foremost Christians on this discipleship journey, as well as our call into the world. We're going to engage in learning together. We're going to have lots of experiential opportunities to learn with and on behalf of each other. And then you're going to get an opportunity to construct a project, to do something that touches down maybe in the ministry setting you're in or one you might imagine yourself to be. There's some books there. We're going to look at Bonhoeffer's Life Together, not the prayer book of the Bible. Some of you have asked that question. We're going to use The Marks of Discipleship and Power Surge by Mike Foss. That tells the story of the congregation I served, and we're going to look at that a little bit. We're going to look at the book Vocations and Discerning Our Calling in Life that is listed there. There's a couple e-reserves within that. I want to talk about the chapters from the Callings book. The idea there is that there are different eras, and it's looking at what does this calling look like over different times. This is not just a 21st century idea. And so the idea is that in each section you would pick one essay. I have the book if you want to look at it. It's also in the library, but it's also a valuable book you might want to pick up yourself. So that's up to you. The structure of this course, we're going to do a lot of different things. And so being present is part of the participation. And so you will get I believe showing up is worth something. So part of our class points are from that, or our grading. And there's two specific assignments, and I will say more as we get closer, but one comes up pretty quick. It's this relational assignment. And so this is a place for you to go out in the world someplace. It could be a coffee shop, it could be the mall, it could be at a restaurant, and just engage some people that you don't know into some conversation about what they think about God and faith and church, and see if that kind of matches your own experience. Now, you can do it by yourself, you can do it with somebody else, you can do it with another person from class or your family, however that is. So that's the first one, and then we're going to talk about it. So come prepared with that at that time. The second thing is we're going to have you each pick somebody who's not working in a church setting and interview them, but as a person of faith, and say, how do you see your faith interacting in your everyday life? In your work, in your time with your friends, in your family, that kind of stuff, and for you to have a one-on-one conversation. So those are two assignments to come up that we will talk about in class. The second piece looks at a paper to reflect on your own journey of discipleship and vocation. We all come from such different experiences. And there's some things we're going to do. We're going to have some readings that hopefully will stir some reflection. We're going to have you do some journaling a little bit each time. You're going to start with that today. We're going to have an opportunity, and there's a sign-up sheet that I sent in a Google Doc for you to have a one-on-one conversation, 30 minutes long, with Krista Lynn in the Student Affairs office, with Nancy Lee in the CYF office, or with Pastor Laura Thielander in the campus ministry office. And so not all those times are there, but a start is if you want to get those signed up. And those are spread over the next few weeks. So hopefully that can work. And then you'll write a short reflection paper on what that has been like for you. The third thing is a final project, and there are two different aspects. You can choose one or the other. One is a theology to help you think, if you want to spend some time framing this and putting that into words, that's what that is. Or you can do something closer to the ground, which is more of constructing a project that could be used. In the past, I've had people do both. Here, we're just going to do one or the other. So note that. There's also some things in there about grading, and if you have to make exceptions to deadlines, please notify me ahead of time. And then the last thing is just an overview of how this works from week to week, and what the readings are for each week and what our themes are. Those one-on-ones are scheduled kind of spread out throughout, so hopefully you can find one that fits for you. Now let me just say a few words about the big ideas of this class. My hope is, as we think about discipleship and vocation of children, youth, and family ministry, this will both help you deconstruct programs and ministries that are going on now, as well as construct or creatively think about putting together what would a vibrant ministry that was focused on discipleship or nurturing us as Christians, as we also tend to our call to the world. Now, in that, those learning objectives are kind of ways to take those goals and flesh them out a little bit. But let me say something about method. You're going to see that already today. This is not a lecture-based course. This is not where I'm giving you information and you're spitting it back to me. This is a course that we're going to take some ideas and we're going to come at them from various things. We're going to experience things together. We're going to talk about ideas in the book or ideas from authors in our own life. We're going to listen to what other practices have said and listen deeply to say, what are they after? What is going on there? So there's readings, there's lecture, there's experience, there's reflection moments, and then there's also application. So that's on and going that we're going to do. Today, for example, you're going to look at baptism, not from a lecture, but from experiencing it as it's structured in a theology around worship. And you're going to get to live that, experience it. So in addition to this kind of looping method that we will be doing, what's real? As Lutherans specifically, and I know not everyone in our class will be Lutheran, but there's some tensions that we live in. We are both freed from and freed for. We have both law and gospel. We have both universal ideas of who God is and our understanding of what it means to be church. But then there's the particulars. There's the unique pieces of each of our lives and each of our communities' lives. We're putting these two things always in conversation with each other. Gospel doesn't sound so freeing when the law is not been put together with that, when we have not named the pieces of our lives together that are hurtful, that are broken. Same with universal in particular. We're not all floating doing our own thing. We're taking these universal ideas and practices and we're putting them in conversation with our local communities and the places that we're at this time and place. We're putting our mission in conversation with God's mission. We're going to talk about that a lot. So, all right, all of us are called to love God and love neighbor. And God is among us in creative and redemptive ways. But what does that mean for me? How do I fit in? What does it mean for our community? We are looking at vocation generally and particularly. We are looking at both the church and the world. We're looking at the call that Christian public leaders have and all God's people. We are looking at things that connect us, bring us together, and things that send us out and push us into the world. We're looking at discipleship as a community and through us personally. So this class is going to have a series of tensions that we are going to constantly put in conversation. And I hope, the fun part of all this, is that I hope that some of you will not all agree on this, and that this will be an opportunity to say, so what if this, what if this, what does this mean? And we get to wonder about these things together. So, at the core, what can we hold on to? This work that we're called into is first and foremost God's. We get to join into what God has been, already is, and will continue to do in the world. And we have been invited to participate. And as Christian public leaders, not only we as personally as followers of Jesus and of Christians in the world, but we as people bringing other people in communities and leading them. A second thing is we're always in conversation with the other. Who are we encountering in the world? And what does it mean for our discipleship journey? For example, among children, youth, and family, studies have shown that people are having a hard time articulating what does it mean to be Christian in the world today. How do we help foster and nurture this Christian identity that we were given at baptism in a way that makes sense today, that puts us in conversation with we are not the same as people of other faith traditions, and how do we put those together? We are going to look at why do we do what we do? Worship is a Christian practice, not just because we've been mandated to do it, but because in that there's something about this discipleship journey that gets fostered, and it's this ongoing rhythm of life. And then there are pieces of our life together that we scatter and we move out into the world. So what does it mean that the world both informs our life together and we are called into the world to transform, to be agents of God's love in the midst of all that? Now, with that said, we're back to the beginning. What's the end? What's the purpose? What's this ministry with children, youth, and their families all about? I hope that whether you're seeing yourself as primarily called to work in children, youth, and families, or whether you're called to work with congregations as a whole, you will dive into this class. You will ask questions. You will wonder, what does this mean for you and the communities that you've been a part of and will be a part of in the future? And together, we will wonder, what does it mean to lead in God's ministry today? Well, with that, Tim, I'm sending it over to you, and I promise to be back with you next week. Thanks.